My dad's a Vietnam War veteran who served in the ROK Army White Horse Division. His stories are the closest thing to a jungle I know. I've seen jungles in movies and documentaries, but never been to one myself. So I had no idea what I was getting into when I bought this empty glass box, but I was about to create a living, breathing world inside of it, a replica of that wild landscape he described so vividly. Starting off, all the photos I have of my dad's time in Vietnam are in black and white, so naturally I went with black sand and a frosted background to capture that look.
I got myself a knife, squeegee, and something to spray the water.
Here I'm temporarily putting it on to get an estimated measurement, and I marked it with a knife. I'm using an aluminum square tube that I have lying around to cut straight. Then I sprayed some water and put the background on with a squeegee. I chose the fluval stratum for the base layer because it is a nutrient reserve, creating a long-lasting food source for plant roots that reach deep. But on its own, it can be too soft and break down quickly, so it works perfectly on the bottom. For the layer above, I'll be using Carib Sea Eco-Complete, and I have a bucket full of sadie rocks laying around. There were countless unbelievable stories my dad shared with me. One early evening, he was jolted by a sudden, thunderous explosion. Instinct took over, but instead of grabbing his uniform or weapon, he reached for his camera and stepped outside, heart racing. As chaos erupted around him, he began snapping photos, his senses heightened by the tension in the air. This is one of the photos he captured that night. When the sounds of battle finally faded, he returned to his tent, only to find it in ruins. His bed, where he had been lying moments before, was shredded, hit by enemy mortar that had torn through the roof. That single impulsive decision to reach for his camera instead had saved his life. Spiderwood is perfect for capturing that old look. Its twisted, intricate branches mirror what you'd find in a real jungle. It's unpredictable, rugged, and has natural beauty that feels so alive. My father was born in February 1947 into a prominent family. His father, a civil engineer, had helped establish major railroads from Seoul to Busan. Although my grandfather had connections in the military that could have made things easier for him, my father chose his own path. When the call went out for volunteers, he proudly raised his hand. I've got 10 Sea-Chem Flourish tabs here for my 30-gallon tank, which should be plenty. I'll be placing them strategically in the substrate where the plants will be, making sure they get a steady nutrient supply. This should really help support healthy growth and keep the plants thriving. South Korea's contribution of 320,000 troops to the Vietnam War stands as the largest military support the US has ever received from a non-English speaking country. At the request of President Lyndon B. Johnson, South Korea deployed these forces over nearly a decade, with units like the Tiger and White Horse divisions making a significant impact. This commitment wasn't just about numbers, it demonstrated a strong alliance between the US and South Korea during the Cold War. Driven by a shared goal to combat the spread of communism, South Korean troops became known for their resilience and effectiveness, leaving a lasting mark on the history of US military partnerships. After 6 months of navigating the harsh jungle, my father was promoted to an officer in the CIC, allowing him the rare luxury of wearing civilian clothes and enjoying a bit more freedom. During this time, he grew close to 2 American GIs who shared his passion for fishing. Together, they would head out on local fishing boats. My father taught his American friends a trick he'd learned, cooking the grenade for a few seconds before tossing it into the water to maximize the catch. Back then, it was a reckless but common practice to bring in large hauls. Most of the fish, however, were given to local villagers who desperately needed the food. It was a dangerous tactic, but it bonded them in a shared thrill. But then as quickly as his friendship had formed, it came to an end. Plants are more than decoration. They're the lungs of this tiny world, filtering water, balancing nutrients, and providing shelter. Here I'm spraying the tank down before I plant the plants, and then wiping off the excess water.
This is not the best filter that's out there. It has a lot of conflicting reviews, but
I'm gonna give it a shot, see if it works. On a day like any other, my father received unexpected orders from his superior, pulling him away from his usual leisure time. He reluctantly obeyed, unaware that this disruption would save his life. Hours later, he heard the shocking news. An RPG had struck a fishing boat, killing 2 American soldiers aboard. Although he didn't speak much English, he remembers one of their names sounded something like Fesky. My father never forgot the tragedy of that day, or the twist of fate that kept him from joining them. It remains a haunting memory of friendship, youthful recklessness, and the high price that can be paid in times of war. This is my father's story from his service in the Vietnam War. He shared so many stories with us over the years, but today, on Veterans Day, I want to honor him by sharing this one with the world, while setting up a special tank dedicated to him. And as for me, I'm a storyteller and a hobbyist, grateful for their sacrifices and for all who have served in the name of freedom. Thank you to everyone who's given so much for the cause of liberty. Stay safe, and God bless America, Korea, and all our allies.
Thank you.
Subscribe.